Welcome to another Drinking With. We have a very special guest this afternoon. This is Chris Fletcher from Jack Daniel's Master Distiller. Chris, welcome to
Drinking. We're
yeah,
drinking with.
I messed up my words there.
Yeah,
Chris,
yeah.
welcome to Drinking With.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
So we are. This is big for me. Chris, you don't know this, but people that are around me have had many questions geared towards me about how much I love Chris Fletcher and Jack Daniels, to the point of, is there a restraining order in place? And so I'm here to say that this is honestly the first time you and I have ever talked digitally, face to face, or any other of the sort. So we're glad to have you here, man. And I'm excited to chat a little bit about what you got going on.
Yeah. Hey, me too. You just made me nervous for the first time this afternoon with that intro. But thanks for having me on anyway.
He makes people nervous frequently. That's kind of his thing. So
yeah.
But Chris, this is we're just a couple of weeks short of your first anniversary as Master Distiller at Jack Daniel's. Just kind of basic, how's this first year gone for you? I know it's been an odd time to jump into a role like that, with the world not being at 100% as it would be. But I mean, you've done some great things in this first year.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it until you said it. You're right. October 1st is a pretty big day for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not been what I had ever probably dreamed that it would be. Thinking about that, working in distilleries now for almost 20 years, and coming into the role in the middle of a global pandemic, and also having at the time a 3-month-old son at home. Let's just say 2020 was a heck of a year, and I know that's not lost on anyone. I know it was a heck of a year for everybody. But with my wife and I having our first baby, and being fortunate enough to step into this role as Master Distiller here at Jack Daniel's, it was certainly even more unexpected in some ways. So it's been a great year. I can tell you, I have been excited for a long time about what we do at Jack Daniel's and what we're going to do in the future. Both with certainly keeping our eye on the ball with favorites as Old Number 7, Gentleman Jack, Single Barrel, and then kind of what we're doing with innovation as well. So it's one of the benefits of it is it's given me 100% focus on the distillery. And so, we've really continued to dig in on innovation and things too. So that's exciting. It's fun. It's something that we haven't really had the opportunity to do very much at Jack Daniel's over the years. We've done a few things, certainly I mentioned a couple with Gentleman Jack and Single Barrel, 1988, then 1997. But we're continuing to look at other ways. So that's a lot of fun as a distiller.
Yeah. You mentioned innovation. And so one of the biggest things that I've been singing your praises about, goodness gracious, I mean, for a daggum year, is just the stuff that's coming off and released. And I actually got some pushback from it, a lot of this stuff is coming out that wasn't necessarily, started under you, for sure. This takes many years. However, I did make the point that, yes, but he's the master distiller. He is tasting this in real time and said, this is ready. We're doing this. Let's run with it. And I just look at the most recent thing, the Jack Daniel's 10-year, that just blows my daggum socks off. For those that don't necessarily, love charcoal mellowing, the 10-year to me with that oak influence really softens that a little bit. And I would love to know kind of what your thoughts are as far as what you were tasting, how you came to say this is ready, this is good. I'm just so fascinated by it because I think it's one of the best Jack Daniel's products. I mean, that and the barrel proof y'all's ryes are ridiculous. We'll get to the ryes later, but let's focus on the 10-year for right now, because I'm really intrigued by this process and you giving it the 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, it has been, years in the making. We started looking at what we could do to start pushing, different ages and different things, probably about 6 years ago. And we just kind of went in with some single barrel lots, and all of our single barrels are only aged on the very top floor of any given barrel house. And so we just started kind of holding back some extra there, and just, we didn't forget about them. Right. I mean, obviously because of tax reasons, if nothing else, you're right. You don't
There's a constant reminder that they're there, right?
Yeah. There is that, that little legal thing that you have to do. So, so they were always there. So it's not like we forgot about them, but just to kind of let them go and kind of push things out in different ways. And I think that's really where I'm excited when it comes to innovation in general, is to start pushing in all directions, with age, with what we can do at our own cooperage and our own stave mills, and what we can do at our own distillery right here over my shoulder we're going to new grain bills. I mean, you name it. So from beginning with grain all the way through what we can do with aging the barrel, we're going to go in all phases. We're going in all directions in innovation. So back to the 10-year. After it got to be about 8 years old up there, we had 3 different batches or lots that were.
Yeah, this is fascinating. I know this story, but I want you to tell it.
Well, I mean, it may sound simple, but each one of these lots had about 1,000 barrels in them, and so we made the decision. I would tell people our single barrel typically top floor is 5 to 7 years. Sometimes it does get closer to 8. So we weren't, in crazy territory when it hit 8 years old. But in sampling and looking at the color and the flavor and the evaporation, obviously also, we made the decision to move 3 separate batches down to a bottom floor of one of our coolest barrel houses, to really just kind of soften things, right? To slow it down. And I think it just kind of continued to mellow it out. You get less extraction on the lower floor. And I think we got plenty of that after 8 years on the top. And honestly, and I've made this comment to people here, within the company, that heck, it turned out maybe even better than I thought in some ways. I love the fact that at 10 years old, knocking on the door of 100 proof at 97, that it is still maintaining that sweet forward profile. It is Jack Daniel's, at its heart and its DNA. And that makes me very excited for, where can we push things further as we go along as well.
Go ahead, Greeze.
Yeah, no, that was the first time in like a very long time, right? Like that y'all have moved barrels in that way, correct?
Yes, absolutely. There have been circumstances probably where we've had to move it maybe for structural reasons in a barrel house, making repairs and just normal things that you have to do to make sure that everything is moving safely and efficiently.
But not for reasons of taste.
Right. Typically we want that. We don't cycle barrel houses here. We don't heat them. And so, we get a lot of stratifying, right? With temperature, with humidity, with airflow. And so, one of the advantages, of what we have, doing this for 150 years is, we can kind of go in and look at our historical data on where barrels are at in the different conditions that they're in. And it's not perfect, right? You can't say, oh, well, 10 years ago, we put barrels here and this is what happened. And so that's going to happen exactly the same 10 years later. But it is a tool that we can use, and it's a tool that we can use for innovation. And digging in and teasing out those different little microclimates across our barrel houses, and even within the same barrel houses, is something that is fun. As a distiller, it's what you get out of bed to do, and so that's one of the advantages of being not traveling at all for a year or 18 months and counting now, and being able to do stuff like that.
I got a quick follow up on that. Now that you've seen the success of doing that, is that on the plate as far as an option that you would do? I know Jack didn't normally do that, way back in the day. So Do you think that could be used again, or is this kind of like a special thing that obviously the whiskey dictates that?
Yeah.
But is that kind of restriction off the table now?
Absolutely. Innovation is something, even in the last, several years, I've been, very involved and active with innovation here. And, it just takes years to get the stuff ready and in the bottle. I mean, as you know, and I know that everybody watching knows that as well. But yeah, everything is on the table for us here, I would say. We want to have the most complete, inventory of aging whiskey in American whiskey. And as Jack Daniel's, why shouldn't we, is the way I look at it. And we have the most complete distiller. I mean, right over my shoulder here, we're bringing in a million pounds of grain every day, making 150,000 gallons a day, when we're running hard. Now that's not an everyday thing, but that's, kind of a good hard running day right there. So, we are building our own barrels.
I don't run 1 mile, let alone 150,000 gallons worth.
Yeah. Well, it just, the thing with us is, and with our innovation and even with our core products, I really believe in transparency. Especially, this is, people are going to buy a bottle of Jack Daniel's whiskeys and consume it and responsibly enjoy it, of course. But I think folks have the right to know everything that goes into that bottle and how it's made. And, we're very proud of it and what we do in our process. And I want you to know the grains. I want you to know how we mash them in our yeast and our distillation. I want you to know all that. So that's why one of the reasons why I'm so excited to spend a few minutes with you here today.
Well, and you mentioned, you said the phrase, as a distiller, something you get out of bed every day to go do. And the one thing that I love about your story at Jack Daniel's is, you weren't an external hire for this position. You'd already been the assistant to the master distiller. You have been around this company your whole life.
Yeah, you were a tour guide, right?
You're a Lynchburg native. You've filled almost every role, it seems like, in the company. To me, that it gives something that is arguably one of the top 5 recognizable brands in the world such a family, local feel, that just having that story. How has it changed for you over this past year, from working your way within the company and being around it your entire life, having a grandfather who was also in that role? How has it changed for you over this past year, now that you are master distiller at Jack Daniel's?
That's a really good question. I think it took a while to sort of sink in a lot of ways. Innovation kind of being one of those things, when it hits you that, it's, and certainly it takes a team, right? And I'll tell you, master distillers get too much credit. And, it's not I. Look, we got great distillers here, many great distillers here. And we have for years, or we wouldn't be in this position. But to know that, what I'm trying to tease out and dig into with innovation and these thoughts and how can we do it, and having to kind of know where would it fit in the operation, whether we're growing corn right over here. We've grown over 30 acres of corn a couple of summers, and looking at what could we do with local farmers here that could help us with that, or whether we're looking at changing something up with the barrel, and I can just pick up the phone and call our director down at the cooperage, and just like that, we're making an adjustment on a toast or a char level, whatever we want, different wood, and looking at where it's coming from, whatever the case may be. I think just kind of realizing that, it's up to me to go make it happen. And it stops here in a lot of ways. And certainly, we've got such a great team here, around me and Lexi, our assistant distiller now. And we've got so many great and talented whiskey makers here that it's shame on me if I'm not pushing and not trying to see what can we do, because folks want to try new and different things, right? And new flavors and what can we do with grain and water and barrel that's interesting. And so I think it's just the responsibility of the master distiller here to make sure that we're continuing to push the envelope and it gives us another way to just tell our story of what we do here in Lynchburg.
One thing, my first interaction with you when you became Master Distiller is I was on a Zoom call with some other media about the barrel proof rye release. It was like, a week after, maybe it was very soon after you were named Master Distiller, that it was kind of the launch of this product for the special release that year. And something you said on there was that I kind of took with me was how you love to see people's reaction to the rye that Jack Daniel's makes, because Jack Daniel's is known for Tennessee whiskey, but you go around and you were talking about people tasting the rye and like, where can I get this? And you're like, well, probably at your local liquor store. It's a wide release product. But within our community, within the the diehard whiskey fans, something that has been almost like we want to keep it a secret, so not everyone will get it, but we want to make it extremely popular, so we'll get more of it, is the ryes, and specifically the Tennessee Taster barrel proof rye, and then the special edition last year of the barrel proof rye. What do you see more innovation? I know we're talking about that a lot, but with your rye whiskey, not just with the Tennessee whiskey.
I love this question, Will. I want to fist bump you, but I don't. I just did a high five.
Yeah, well, the short answer is yes. So that's good. Yeah, a little more about our rye. If you just give me a couple of minutes.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's 70% rye, 12% malted barley, 18% corn. So we maintain at least 12% malted barley in any grain bill we do. But that 70% rye was not stumbled upon. I have to give credit to a former distillery manager here. We started first distilling in early 2011, which I was still working in R&D. I was still working as a chemist in research and development at the time. But to be honest, Jack Daniel's has that just inherent sweetness to it, because of, a few different things. One big thing being our yeast strain. It makes a very estery, fruity spirit, which, has all those sweet notes that you get on the nose and on the front of the palate. And so just knowing if you could balance out enough rye with that, you're going to have this really great tension between sweet and spice, just right off the bat. And the first fermenters that we did, we were pretty excited, and so then it was just about getting the right amount of.
Y'all were high fiving.
Yeah, pretty much. So great, double kudos to Jerry, Mr. Hamilton, that kind of came up with that 70% rye, because I think he was all over it, absolutely 100% right. So long story short, let's get back to your innovation with rye question. Yes, we are going to continue to look at rye. I think, I'm still very intrigued with our rye whiskey, and I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of great distillers and been in a lot of different distilleries and seen rye do things that I didn't really expect. You think rye being a spicier, bolder, grain, what's it going to do in the barrel longer term? And of course, a lot of things play into that. It's not just as simple as how long is it in the barrel, but I do think in
something
my
tells me you got something cooking that might actually answer that question, Chris.
Well, I think we don't know in a lot of things, to be honest, because we've only made rye since 2011. And then a lot of that has been, out with our core rye, with our single barrel offerings, our barrel proof offerings. But we are continuing also to look at, what else can we do with rye and continue to tweak it and go different ways with it, because I think it's incredibly balanced to have that much rye at 70%. It maintains such a great balance of flavor. And so it just sets itself up to do more with. And so we will continue to look at it.
And I think that's, to me, something within our whiskey community, something that like a big brand like Jack Daniel's that has, the fact that everyone has an experience with Jack Daniel's almost from, college all the way up until us as seasoned whiskey drinkers, I'd say. But the fact that with new products, the one thing I would say I always take away from a new Jack Daniel's offering is it's surprising. like when you talk about the rye being still having that characteristic sweetness of Jack Daniel's, but with the rye spice, whether it be Tennessee Tasters finished in allspice wood barrels or all sorts of different things. There's always a surprise when you taste a new Jack Daniel's product. And I think that's what excites me when you talk about things like innovation, when you talk about things like playing with age in the wood and things like that. I get excited as a whiskey geek myself when,
or like the Sinatra with the
grooves in the barrel,
yeah.
all the different things that that because of the size of Jack Daniel's, you are afforded the opportunity to play with things, to have fun with the whiskey, and to surprise the consumer. And I feel like that's the biggest takeaway I have every time I try a new Jack Daniel's whiskey. And that was just a statement, Grace. Not even a question. I
was silently sitting here
appreciative of the work y'all do and continue to do.
Yeah, I mean that was like an unspoken prayer request.
100%.
Like 100%. I was like back row Baptist, like pastor. You know, like I concur with him. I agree with him. Unspoken. So you had the rye. So, I'm assuming, and I should have done my homework on this, Chris, but I'm assuming there's going to be additional barrel proof rye releases. Piggybacking off of that, is there any, and you might not be able to answer this, is there any, potential possibility? Currently, right now, you can do barrel picks of barrel proof bourbon,
Tennessee whiskey.
Oh, sorry, barrel proof Tennessee whiskey. And the rye. Oh, wait, no, sorry. And then the 94 proof single barrel options of the whiskey and the rye. Is there anything to kind of fill in that gap?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something that we're thinking about for sure. And we'll consider it. Right now, our single barrel picks have exploded. And to be quite honest, we're pretty far behind. And we're trying to, and trust me, we don't like that. We ask for people's patience. But we hope to get caught up as soon as possible. But certainly, I think we're going to look as we continue to expand here and innovate in many different ways. Single barrel is certainly one of them, and we do each year now. We've had for 3. This will be the 4th year here in the next month or so of our single barrel special release, which is the barrel proof rye was last year, and so we're going to continue to offer up a unique special release every year as well. So we're working at literally right now on the one for this year. I was just 2 hours ago was down there checking on it, and we will certainly see about future barrel offerings and everything. We would love to make everything available, right? If we could, it's just not quite that.
You don't have a time machine, Chris?
To
go back and tell everybody, but hey, y'all need to make some more barrels of this. It's pretty good. Yeah, it's so funny. Like I would say, a couple of years ago, we could a store would get a barrel proof, Jack Daniel's in or a rye or the 94 proofs, and they'd be available for a while. Like you didn't have to run. Then we've done a couple of them, and literally. The only reason they hit the shelf is because the retailer was like, I'm going to keep 4 cases back for just walk-in traffic, because that's what's nice for the retailers is getting people to come in there. Where they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot a little bit is doing the Facebook stuff like in you got it. You kind of want them to kind of come into the store, check it out. If it's not there, be like, well, I'm here, I might as well grab something. You know what I mean? Yeah. But like it's been a progression. Like the past couple of years, Jack Daniel's single barrels has like exploded. Yeah, and it's for the right reason too. The dadgum contents are freaking great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all about the juice. You're not going to see anything. Any commercials about Jack single barrel or anything like that. And it's always been a phenomenal whiskey. I would tell you. It's balanced between 5 and 7 years. Top floors only. Only maybe about half of our barrel houses on those top floors will produce single barrel whiskey. It's always been approved by our master panel. that will open up those top floor barrels to allow us to go in and say these are ready.
And that's something to point out too for our listeners right now, is that you heard Chris say they're producing 150,000 gallons on a day when they're really cooking and going, right? So you would think, well, why don't they have a lot of this? It's because y'all specifically designate places in a rick house, and building a rick house is not like, hey, let's make a new one of these next week.
Yeah. Those are pricey, and it takes a while. So
yeah,
for sure.
We have a question from a listener. This is from our buddy Adam, and he says, people are loving the 10-year Jack Daniels. Are we going to see some older age statement releases in the coming years? And I guess I would also kind of piggyback off of that. Even if it's not older, this age statement was the first time in over 100 years, right, that an age statement has been on a release of Jack Daniels. So even if it's not older, is an age statement on some releases of whiskey something that we may see again in the near future?
And I think there's been some pictures discovered with Jack Daniel with like 18-year, 23-year. So, I mean, in the essence of honoring a hero, could we possibly see some older stuff?
Yeah, you look, you're gonna continue to see 10, and certainly based on what we know and love about the 10-year-old, yes, we're gonna try to continue to push that envelope as long as we can continue to do it, and moving barrels and doing things. It's about putting the best whiskey in there that we can. Those 10-year-old barrels that we put out as the 10-year, it's not the oldest barrels we have around here, but those were the best barrels we could put in the bottle at 10 years old. And that's what it was about. And that's why we're moving barrels and doing these things and tasting them and, maintaining that incredibly kind of sweet forward profile I was talking about. That was it's just so refreshing to know that we could do that. And yes, age stated whiskeys are definitely a part of our past. We've not had a 10-year-old age statement here since Jack Daniel was alive. So literally the early 1900s. And, he had 10, he had 12, 14, 18, and 21 that we either have bottles of or we have pictures of those bottles. So, I would love to tell you that we can just recreate all that, no problem. Number one, obviously that takes decades of work. And then number two, let's be honest. Look, things are different now. I think we're probably a little more consistent at the whiskey that we're putting in the barrel than maybe was being done in the early 1900s. Even if my granddad were still here, in the 50s and 60s, he would tell you that, we're probably a little more consistent today. The quality of our barrels, making our own barrels, knowing the toast and the char to the second and the temperature. And I mean, everything that we need, in those barrels is getting in there. Back then, you're just throwing a barrel over a fire,
right.
So with a lot of different things now that we have to make sure that we're doing right.
And with the whiskey boom too, like, you're obviously seeing more profits associated with that. So that enables a big company like Jack Daniels to take some more chances, to put some more barrels back, to extend those ages. You can pay the taxes longer. You know what I mean? Like, you can figure it out, because a lot of those times, it's going to be small lots that you're aging up that years. But I think, with money coming in, you can afford to say, let's throw 1,000 barrels and let's just see what 18 years looks like on Jack Daniels. You know what I mean? Like,
I feel like he's trying to manifest this right now.
I'm manifesting so freaking hard right now, Chris. I can't even I don't even know how to spell manifest. I know it's a TV show about an airplane, but I don't think that's what we're talking about right now.
Well, 1,000 barrels, that's a lot of barrels, but now look, again, we're going to see what we can do. And it's going to be about putting the best whiskey in the bottle that we can, because heck, it would be awesome. It'd be interesting. I mean, you're talking about earlier, how, trying new and different things, and you enjoy that, and it's surprising. And I'm the same way, guys. I mean, I just get to do it, every day at work, which is a total blessing. But if I wasn't doing this, I would be, hopefully doing what you guys do. So it's, that's the great thing about being a distiller right now in American whiskey. because it is the absolute best time, I think, in the history of our industry to be making whiskey, period. I think, people talk about right after Prohibition ended. I'm sure that was a great time too, but I just cannot imagine it being any better than it is now.
So this is another question from our buddy Matt. And he says, love what Jack Daniels is doing, listening to the people. And he's asking if you've increased rye production after seeing such positive feedback over the last year. And I know that, you only have so many hours in the day, so many gallons that can go through a still during that time period, that as I'm certain you have to make the decisions of what runs are going when. Is that something that is a constant for you, or is it something you're having to play with to ensure you're getting the maximum amount of barrels of each thing that you want to put out?
Yeah, it's a constant worry, to tell you the truth. Because you're thinking about what are we going to be selling in 4, 5, 6, 10, whatever years, and you're probably going to be wrong, right? You're probably not going to put away enough, or you're going to put away a little bit too much, and you just hope not to be too far on either side of that fence. And so it's a hard thing. Look, it's a struggle. We are continuing to push rye, put it down, and to look at it and see, where we think it's going to go in both innovation and then our core rye products too. Our core rye, everyday offering, about a 5-year-old 90 proof. Man, you talk about a base whiskey for cocktails. It is just unbelievable. I think in an old fashioned, with that sweet character that Jack just has, and then that little bit of that rye spice to balance it out. It is made for that. And so, there's a lot of considerations, is what I'm trying to say, in other outlets for our rye. But yes, we have laid down, I hope, what is plenty of rye, and I'm excited to continue to move forward with it.
Well, I'm hoping that we can help make that not enough rye.
Oh yeah, we'll just keep buying it up. Yeah.
Right. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure
I wasn't making a challenge or anything.
Hey, dude, it's endless shrimp time at Red Lobster right now. I'm up for a daggum challenge. So, I'm gonna there's no way that I don't buy more than you probably have.
You're going to try to buy them out.
Well, it's called futures.
Oh, gotcha.
In the stock industry,
yeah, I see what
you
you're
buy
saying.
futures. So, when I go to Jack Daniels and I go to the gift shop,
yeah,
I go up to the cashier and I'm like, listen here, I don't want this, and she's like, okay. I'm like, I want to buy next year's this.
Got it.
How you feeling about that?
Right.
And she'd probably not be pleased about that.
No,
but
they don't even have it on the cash register yet.
Yeah, but I'm just worried that it's going to keep on going up in price. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
I'm not worried about, investments. Inflation, heck, just came out last month, like 5% on the year.
It just came out. The inflation did.
I don't know.
Somebody
said it's 5%.
They just released it.
It's too daggone much. They just were like, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that. It's 5%. All right. So, Chris, here's the deal. All right, so I actually have and this is not going to be a new idea to you, but this is what I am jonesing for on a big scale. One of our really good buddies, Dixon Deadman, he's a master blender. He owned Kentucky Owl until he sold it to Stoli, and then he just recently left. And Lord only knows what he's about to get into, but I have hunches. The art of blending, in that sense, is there anything on the table as far as, maybe a daggum Chris Fletcher bourbon rye blend, or you're taking I know y'all don't have a bunch of different mash bills to play around with, but is there anything that you could take a certain amount of lot of barrels and blending across platforms to maybe make a unique product?
Yeah, that's always a possibility, and I've been lucky. I've worked with some great blenders in my career, and even our counterparts within Brown-Forman, Rachel Berry over in Scotland, and she's just amazing, and is so talented with that as well. So it's not where I have been the most focused in my career in almost 20 years. But yeah, that is an option. It's something that we have looked at for sure. We've experimented with it as well. We actually, one of our experimental releases for Tennessee Tasters was called the Twin Blend, which was our Tennessee whiskey or our bourbon recipe along with our rye.
I didn't even know about that one.
Yeah, it's one of the latest. Probably it may be the latest one. I think it just came back in the spring, maybe. So it was basically.
So you're ahead of me, Chris, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well,
you're legit ahead of me.
That's our job is to right. Try to do things.
Hey, this would be a pretty good idea. And I'm going to go back to my statement of like
you should have come to the gift shop and you would have bought it.
This is probably not anything new to you, Greeze, but yeah. Oh my God, that's
no.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, I know like we've had the Jamaican spice, we've had the barrel, the rye. We've had
barrel proof rye, the smoked one.
The maple or so. Like, wasn't it a maple? Like smoked? I don't know.
There's a hickory.
I think you just had maple syrup for breakfast.
I probably did.
Yeah. So the Twin Blend was, I think, one of the most recent releases, if my memory serves. And so what had happened was, we had been looking at, rye and our Tennessee whiskey and flavors to it, and in our quality lab, and Jessica Hartline, who's one of our managers down in our quality lab over finished products. And I called her and talked to her about doing some different blends and things. And she had done some great work with it and kind of already had a good lead. And then kind of coincidentally, a few weeks later, I stumbled, through some inventory that we actually entered on the same exact day, which is a bit unusual because you've got two different liquid streams. And, if you mix them now you've made blended whiskey before you've gotten it into the barrel.
Right.
Which is not advisable.
Right.
Anyway, long story
some
short,
people do it.
Well, I mean,
not Jack Daniels though.
What the goal is, I guess.
Right.
But for us, we choose not to do that, and basically that's where the Twin Blend name came from because they had the same birthday. They were entered in, and so they were both about 6 years old. I think top floor or near top floor, put in at the same exact day. And so then Jessica did a mix on those to blend those two together. And so they're,
Jack
I know
Daniels
it's a gift shop.
Birthday whiskey. That's what it was.
I have a question about, so we've been sipping on this because we love it. It's one of, specifically this rye is one of my favorite whiskeys.
Oh, it's top 5 ryes, period.
But you were saying that, we should be hearing something about another release. Is there any sort of time frame you can tell us when we're going to find out what's coming down for the single barrel special release this year, or anything you can maybe tease out on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it'll be early November. And so we are working on getting it bottled right now here in our single barrel line, which is just right down the road here. And so I'm really, really excited about it. It's I can tell you, it is going to be another, barrel proof offering. It's not rye whiskey. It's going to be Tennessee whiskey. But we've really dug into the differences of barrel houses, and even within different barrel houses, and starting to tease apart, how that maturation rate is affecting the whiskey at different ages within those different areas. And so it's something that we have a pretty diverse set of barrel. We have 92 barrel houses. And so we have 13 of them here around the distillery on the hillsides. As you drive into Lynchburg, you see them. And then we have a lot that kind of sit down in a valley near our main bottling hall, which is just about a mile down the street.
Oh, I've seen it on Google Maps.
Yeah, Google Maps too.
It daggum looks like have you ever seen one of those like automobile graveyards? It looks like
many, because there's
so many, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like that's a lot. That's a lot of buildings with whiskey.
Well, and what's so unique about Lynchburg too is because you have the changes in elevation, and you're in Tennessee. You're getting between the lowest rick house and the highest and the top floor of that. I mean, there's significant differences in the weather those barrels are experiencing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. And And it's not something, if you think about, my granddad started here in 57, he retired in 1989. Old number 7 was allocated almost his whole career. It didn't come off allocation in the U.S. until 1980. So, you think about now being able to kind of stop and tease out these things and think about, hey, track 3, our newest barrel houses sit in a big flat open field with no trees and get constant sun exposure. And, to start looking at that and seeing about these different profiles that we can tease out. It's just a lot of fun. And that's kind of where we're going with this single barrel special release. And, it's about offering something new and showcasing innovation and pushing the boundaries. And we're going to continue to do that.
I have a feeling that will do quite well within the marketplace.
Within the marketplace, yeah, for sure. Not Facebook Marketplace. That's the armpit of social media.
The consumer marketplace.
Yeah,
right?
the consumer marketplace.
Yes.
Yeah. I've said this before on our show, and I think it's just a testament to you and Lexi and the whole team. Like, I love where like Jack Daniels. Y'all have got like a young crowd coming in. You know what I mean? Like, y'all are younger. You know what I mean? Like it and
thank you.
Yeah, like, and I tell people this all the time. I'm like, I feel like the Band-Aid was ripped off, and they're just like, there's no rules. Y'all play, y'all just play. You know what I mean? Like a kid comes in, I'm like, I'm hurt. No, rip the Band-Aid off. Y'all go outside and make it happen. Be creative. Go play outside. And that's the thing that I just keep coming back to, is that while I know that there's a legacy that was in place, the whiskey that was put into the barrel was not necessarily your time. You've been there. Weren't you an assistant distiller for 7 years prior to taking on the Master Distiller? Yeah. So it's not like you haven't been a part of this process. It's not like you haven't had insight. Like you said earlier, it takes a team. And so for someone to say that, this is a previous distiller's, all work and Chris is just sitting there just punching cards and making, like, no, you don't understand. Like, Chris had influence for the past 7 years, 1, or 7 years prior to him taking over Master Distiller, 1, and 2, he's the guy that's putting his name on the line and putting that whiskey out there. And I just think that you guys are so, I mean, I'm telling you right now, like, I think y'all are the best thing that's happened to Jack Daniels in a long, long, long time. And I'm freaking pumped about it. Every time I think about the future, I wouldn't necessarily know in years past of kind of like, well, I hope they release something cool. I'm like, I freaking know that you and Lexi and the team, like, y'all are going to freaking push out some freaking great, cool stuff. And I don't even, like, in 2 years, what are we going to be doing, Chris? All I know is that I'm going to be overly tipsy because of Jack Daniels releasing something that's incredible, and I'm going to try, and we're not going to be able to find it. We're going to have to just ISO the crap out of it online. That's what we're going to have to do.
Yeah, well, thank you, first of all. That was very kind of you to say. Yes, you are right. I do liken the Distillers' roles as kind of the quarterback of the football team. You get too much credit. You really do. Look, we have absolutely great people in this distillery right now making whiskey. We have great people at our cooperages and our stave mills that are literally turning logs of oak trees into staves, right? Every single day for us. And so, all the way along the process, our bottling folks down there, I tell you, the pride that they take in what they do of putting out every single bottle with Jack Daniels Lynchburg, Tennessee on it. It just comes from what we do here in Lynchburg. I mean, we're a town of 600 or 700 people. The whole county is only about 6,000 people. And we're sending our whiskey to 170 countries all over the world. And I'll tell you, my family history here, I think that's like 2/3 of all employees here are either related to a current employee or a former employee. And so people go to work every day, and it's about family, and it's about making our whiskey and making what we believe is the best whiskey we can possibly make. And, that when you're master distiller director of quality, it makes your job a whole lot easier, right? Because people are invested, and it's meaningful, and it's a piece of them. It's a piece of our hometown that we're sending out the door every day. And there's a lot of pride in that.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Drinkin' With. We've had a blast. We've learned a lot, and we're excited about what the future holds with you at the helm of Jack Daniels. But we also know that we'll hopefully be talking to you here again soon.
Before we go, is there anything that you want our audience to know that we didn't get to?
You know, I would just say a couple things. First of all, ask questions. Ask, know where what you're drinking, what the whiskey is, and I want people to know that Jack Daniel's Tennessee whiskey is 80% corn, 12% malt, 8% rye, and that it's all done right here over my shoulder and fermented with our yeast that we grow every single week and bring in fresh from that mother culture that we can date to prohibition, and we make our own charcoal for the mellowing process. We make our own barrels, and so I love to talk process, and I want people to know more about process and how whiskey is made. I think it's number one. You're right as the consumer, and I think the more you know about what we do in Lynchburg, the more you will love it. And it's obviously, as the distiller, the process is my most important thing. And then secondly, enjoy and do it responsibly. Have fun, but please always enjoy our products responsibly, because we got a lot of more great stuff coming, and we want you to be able to try all of it.
Yeah, I'll end on the you got to watch out for that yeast, because if you don't put the lid on it, it could get out a little bit. I heard a story. So I heard a story of a guy laying across like the doorway of like just trying to keep the yeast inside. Something like that. I don't know what it was. Details.
It may have happened, maybe, allegedly. Long time ago.
Long time. Yeah. Not under your watch for sure.
So we will
tight ship, Chris.
We'll end this with the way we end all of our shows, and that is, we don't know Jack,
but we'll drink it.